A warm welcome, excuse me, to all attending this debate session discussing resilience and regenerative strategies for urban innovation. I'm Michael Cole from the Center for Liveable Cities in Singapore. Our esteemed panelists today are from the City Network of the LKYWCP World City Prize. As active contributors to this community of practice, they have been deeply involved in knowledge sharing and in fostering of partnerships between government officials, planning departments, knowledge organizations, and their communities to collectively tackle urban challenges. The panelists today are from 5 laureate cities: Vienna, Seoul, New York, Medellin, and Bilbao. Despite the geographic diversity, these cities face shared challenges, including climate change adaptation, revitalization of urban spaces, such as waterfronts, and the need for innovative strategies to enhance community well-being and sustainability. Our discussion today will explore impactful initiatives undertaken by each city to drive revitalization, strengthen resilience, and bring their communities on board. Now, panel members, we're ready to begin. Let me just start with the first question. Well, to begin, we understand that your cities have implemented a range of strategies for urban revitalization, such as addressing climate change adaptation, enhancing public spaces, tackling demographic challenges, managing waterfronts and flood risks, amongst others. Could you provide us with a brief overview of the most impactful initiatives your city has already undertaken or is planning in the near future to drive revitalization? And I propose that we'll start with Eider, and we'll just go down the line. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the city of Bilbao. It's a pleasure for us to have you all here. And, well, in our case, as it has been mentioned before by, well, the different government representatives and by Idoia from BM30 as well, the revitalization of Bilbao is something that has been going for decades now. And I'm not going to go through that again, but there's something very important to be mentioned, is that it has always been done in a very comprehensive manner. So the holistic approach to the revitalization of the city is a key factor for the success of the different projects and urban developments that we have actually pushed and given impulse from the City Council. I would like to highlight 4 specific high-impact initiatives in our city. One that is quite known all over the world, and Idoia was mentioning before, this building, this palace is actually part of it, is the whole Abando Ibarra project. So this whole area was once characterized for being a shipyard area, and it was full of factories. And it has gone through a remarkable transformation. It has transformed into a vibrant and a cultural sphere of the city with the Guggenheim as an icon. We have created new parks, we have done a mixed-use development, housing, offices, and cultural facilities. But there are also projects that are now undergoing, such as the Zorrozaurre Island. Probably many of you have already heard about it, our knowledge island. And it's an ongoing project that is working on the development and the transformation of a degraded post-industrial island. Well, it was a peninsula, it's an island now, into the knowledge district of the city, always taking into consideration sustainable and sustainability elements. So we are working on areas for innovation. We already have some universities and research centers located in the island, and we are doing a special effort also on social housing in the island as well. Another project that is ongoing is the Punta Zorroza project that aims to recover a disused port facility, and it was an industrial land, so we are encouraging a new way of relating with the water and with the nature. The project that won let's say the contract to be developed in this specific area had a very clear focus on how the land will relate to the water, to the river, that is so important for us, for the city of Bilbao. And this project will have a very special focus on the audiovisual industry. And last but not least, and we are very proud of this project as well, is the Peñascal project. It's a neighborhood that was very degraded, and it has been a public initiative. We have worked through several participatory processes with the whole neighborhood, and we will be demolishing 300 households. We'll be constructing 8 blocks, creating 225 new homes, and while 50% of them will be social housing, and the other 50% will also be in a very specific characteristic and a very specific framework. And we are working on habitability, accessibility, and social, and working in order to reduce the social exclusion of the area. So, as a common line for all these projects is the medium long-term vision and strategy. And of course, some of the challenges, and I believe that we can talk about them later on, are the financing that has mostly been done through Bilbao Ria 2000, this public-public consortium that was created many decades ago in order to give a new life to the city of Bilbao and to the metropole of Bilbao. And also another big challenge would be the climate change and how we are adapting all these new projects to the climate change situation.
Well, thank you very much, Eider, from Bilbao. And now let's hear from Zoe from New York City.
Yeah, so very pleased to announce we have some really good projects happening in New York right now. Chief among them is we actually broke ground just a few months ago on the Gateway Tunnel, which is probably one of the most important projects in the country right now. It will double capacity, train capacity, under the Hudson River on the Northeast Corridor line, which is used by our national rail, Amtrak, as well as our local rail system in New Jersey. And right now, there's only 2 tracks going into New Jersey, and any accidents, any breakdowns, it shuts down a world city, and that is really mind-boggling. And so we're very excited to see that advancing. Those tunnels took on serious damage during Hurricane Sandy, and we need to fix the existing tunnels. So we need the new tunnels to be able to do that. So very excited there. We have some good projects in the works, including the Interborough Express, which is going to bring light rail and new transit access to underserved communities in the Bronx and Queens. And then I just wanted to bring up, we have a really good housing policy that I'm very excited to see moving forward. It was introduced last year. It's called the City of Yes. And it's a push to make housing production easier in every single borough of the city, and in a context-sensitive way. They did fantastic public outreach. City planning just passed this. It's a zoning reform package that was passed on September 25th and will now head to City Council for approval. And right now it's on track to move forward. It's a suite of production incentives and rules that would apply to dense, middle, and low density parts of the city. And a really exciting part of it is a density incentive for developers, that they will be able to put 20% more units per building if those units are made affordable. And affordability here is defined as 60% of the area median income. And we desperately need housing. Rent is the highest in the nation, and this is going to do a lot to make sure that people can afford to live in our wonderful city.
Well, thank you very much, Zoe. And we'd like to hear from Inhee from Seoul now.
Yeah. In the last 30 years, we had a lot of innovative rejuvenation project and rehabilitation project. But after the pandemic, suddenly we think, oh, Seoul is not bad. And that's why we were very flexible and changeable. But since pandemic, we stay and we satisfied with our current situation. And if we suggest some innovative idea, then, I'm sorry. Because of the system, it belongs not in our boundary. And that's why it is, we should really change in basically, because the condition nowadays, because of climate change and democratic change, is more serious than before. But the citizen is satisfied. And that's why we start to plan next 100-year long-term plan. The goal is not to make a result, not to make a design for 100 years, but we try to make a tool so that we can begin to discuss with citizens, professional politicians. because the future of the citizen think another idea of compared to politician or specialists. And that's why we try to make a consensus through this median. Sometimes we should accept the uncomfortable lifestyles because of the climate changes and etc. And the result is almost finished, and that is the whole city should be revitalized and restructured. And in 2 weeks, we discuss about the result in Singapore, cooperate with the Barcelona models. And after the discussion, we improve the result. And then we will announce with the citizens, we will begin to discuss with the citizens. And I hope in next year, we have a result for the next 100 years. Then we are ready to discuss not only the citizens, but also with global cities.
Thank you, Inhee from Seoul. And now over to Simón from Medellin.
Hi, Michael. Thank you. So here in Medellin, we are making a lot of programs and projects in smart cities. In smart cities, we are having a special treatment area in the north of the valley, where we are trying to test new technologies and to have a little better solutions for policies and so on with the technology that Medellin is working with digital transformation, with the public administration and so. But he is also working on all themes from sustainability and green infrastructure. We have green corridors in Medellin where we plant a lot of trees, and we are making more in order to fight with the climate change and so. Also, we are working on expand all the urban mobility and public transformation with all new electric buses and expanding the train and going with those and also with cycle routes and so.
Thank you, Simón. And over to Johannes now from Vienna.
Yeah, thank you. You know that Vienna is one of the most quickly growing cities in Europe, at least. What we have seen in the last years is that a lot of this growth is accommodated by in the existing neighborhoods. So pressure on public space is growing, and what we've seen is when setting up our long-term strategy that we call our smart climate city strategy is we tried what Charles said to separate the important from the unimportant, and saw that actually it's when it comes to climate issues, it's both important: climate mitigation, so coping with the questions of how to reach our climate goals, and climate adaptation in a way that that everybody in the city will have the same quality of life. So what we are now doing is we are on the one hand setting up the perhaps biggest program that Vienna has ever seen in order to replace our heating system that is mostly relying on gas heating. 2/3 of the flats of the households are heated with gas, with renewable energies. And this is the largest endeavor that we have seen in the last decades in Vienna. And it's still a learning process. So we are collecting first experiences, how to find different solutions for different settings: small houses, big houses, home ownership, and rental housing. And at the same time, we have programs to reshape public space so that it meets the requirements of climate change, and it also meets our mobility goals. So redistributing public space, give more space to walking, to cycling, more shading, more greening. And integrating these parts is one of the biggest challenges. We're trying to get the people in. We have programs like what we call neighborhood oasis, where the inhabitants of the neighborhood can bring up their own ideas how to redesign public space in front of their door in order to have parklets, a room for interaction parties in front of the doors. And they get not only public subsidies, but also public advice how to do it.
Well, thank you very much, Johannes from Vienna. Now, in quick summary, we've heard about how Bilbao is revitalizing 4 key areas in the city. We've also heard from New York and how they're focusing on transportation and also density incentives. Seoul is looking at long-term planning, particularly in terms of the 100-year plan that Inhee has talked about, but also engaging communities. Medellin has talked about smart city pilots in the city, green corridors, and also transportation. So there's a commonality with New York there. And then we move on to Simón, Johannes next from Vienna. And he's again talking about long-term strategy, which I think Seoul is also talking about, and also Bilbao. And he's talking about the urban energy transition to revitalize the city, to convert it, move it away from gas to achieve climate goals. And the issue of reshaping public space came up. And another common issue that Vienna is, of course, engaging communities in all their efforts. So with that broad summary in mind, let's move on to the next question. And this is a question on resilience. So we know that enhancing urban resilience is essential for successful revitalization. Could you elaborate on the specific strategies your city has implemented to strengthen urban resilience? Maybe we can start with Eider again and we'll move down. Thank you.
Well, I was just about to say that when we talk about urban resilience in Bilbao, we do that thinking on the long term, but after hearing Seoul's strategy for 100 years, I'm a bit embarrassed, have to admit, we do not think on a 100-year time, but we do try to think on the medium-long-term strategy. And then we bring that to our mandate plan. In the case of the city of Bilbao, we have developed 10 strategic lines that have a very clear focus on urban resilience from all different aspects. Again, the approach and the way in which we are proposing these strategic lines, we are doing it in a comprehensive and a holistic manner. So it goes all the way from transport mobility to green climate change areas to social impact initiatives, etc. So from that mandate line, we bring it down to strategic concepts, so strategic plans in the different areas. So we, for instance, work on the digital agenda for Bilbao, or in the Bilbao's action plan for the localization of the SDGs. Right? So we work on those strategic plans that are afterwards adapted to the needs of the society in our city for the coming years in a shorter term. And we evolve those strategic plans into more concrete actions. But what we do have in mind, and as a cross-cutting manner, is that we want to work on environmental restoration. So as Johannes was saying, it's not only about, it's about mitigating the impact of the climate change, but also about adapting ourselves to it. So we have a very clear line of work in that aspect. We, as I mentioned before, in the different strategic projects of the city, urban projects, we're working on infrastructure improvements. So in addition to the ones that I mentioned, we keep on working on the improvement of the metro lines, the tram lines, mobility as a way of getting people connected in Bilbao and the metropole and around. Also, cultural investment. Culture has been an engine for the city. It was 40 years ago, and we hope that it continues being. So we are working on the restoration of our fine arts museum and some other important projects that will boost the ecosystem. Also, a big important push for the green infrastructure, working on the green belt around the city that will give us more options to have in the coming years more green areas that are so needed. And what is absolutely cross-cutting in all our development strategies is the human-centric approach. So at the end of the day, what matters is the people that live in our city. And so we try to have all that in mind when we develop our mandate plan, our strategies, and then our actions, concrete actions.
Excellent, Ada. Thank you. And now over to Zoe from New York.
Yeah, and so with that focus on planning, I think one of the things that we're really trying to get our region's government to kind of absorb and implement, it's happening better in some areas than others, is the overarching understanding that we need to incorporate resilience into everything we do. We can't look at transportation over here and construction over here and urban planning over here. We need to break down these silos and factor in resilience across the board. And so that's been happening a little bit as we go. We have some mega projects that are happening. As I mentioned earlier, in 2012, our region was hit by Hurricane Sandy, and it caused a lot of destruction. And so the big project that a lot of people might have heard of is kind of called the Big U. If you look at the bottom of Manhattan, it's a series of projects that would shore up the Lower East Side part of Manhattan. And so luckily, one of the bigger pieces of that, which is the East River Park, is actually already under construction, and that's going to elevate the park by 8 to 10 feet, and then also make it a more fun park than it is right now. And so that was actually a bigger lift than you would think. It got a little bit of pushback because parts of the park are going to be closed for a couple of years. But when we're looking at the need to protect our city, to protect our residents, we have to be looking at these multi-pronged strategies. Parks that are usable, but also serving as protective infrastructure. And so that's kind of our biggest push right now. And then on the other side is also, of course, trying to reduce our carbon emissions and slow that pace. And so New York has been advancing building electrification, as mentioned earlier, and then trying to cut the amount of driving and the amount of emissions that are coming from any vehicles, whether they're buses, so we're converting to electric buses, or whether that means people driving into the city core, trying to get as many people onto transit as we can.
Thank you, Zoe. Over to you now, Inhee.
And main idea of 100 year, we try to rearrange our spatial structure instead of one mega city in Seoul. 50 self-sufficient and compact micro Seoul. And within this area, the citizens can live and work and play together. Then Seoul is possible because Seoul is a very high density city, in not only inner city, but also in periphery. We have a good density city job center. So nowadays we have about 30 local CBD, and we need more than 20 city job center when we realize 50 micro Seoul. And luckily, we have 54 universities, over 700,000 students, and the university located in periphery. And that's why we try to combine between the university potential to city center. And then maybe we have, in the future, we have a 50 micro compact zone. And we realize then nowadays, citizens spend over 1.5 hours commute time. And they reduce the 10 or 15 minutes by foot, and very safe for the aging, and also reduce the carbon and reduce the waste management. I think that is also one of the strategies to become a resilient city.
Thank you, Inhee. Yeah. Now over to Simón from Medellin.
As you know, Medellin has, in the neighborhoods, has a project that it's called UA. It's an articulate life unit where the water tanks were. They make a lot of urban development around those water tanks for the people, for the neighborhoods, where they can make their sports or cultural teams or things like that. So that we are working on is in those neighborhoods where the water tanks are and these UVAs are, having also spaces for the people for where they can go to learn, to develop his economic system from the neighborhoods. And also, depend on the neighborhood, they have different options for making a development there. That's a plan that are in this this government is making, and also they are reforming and they are building new schools for the people in the neighborhoods.
Thank you, Simón. Over to you now, Johannes. What's Vienna doing?
Thank you. I would like to focus on two aspects of resilience. One is the long-term one, which is about infrastructures like Eider and also Seoul already addressed. Vienna is a city of 2 million inhabitants. We're still benefiting from the fact that several of the infrastructures of Vienna have been layouted for a city of 4 million already 100 years ago. So that is still what is important for us. Now, the example that I would like to bring is not a new one. It's the Danube Island, as we call it, which is an artificial island constructed along the river Danube between 1972 and 1988, so within a 15-year period, creating a second riverbed that is regulated by a barrage at the top end and a power plant at the lower end. And in times of flood, that can be the barrage can be opened and the whole riverbed is filling with water. So we can, in that way, protect the whole city from being flooded. And we have seen that already only 2 weeks ago, when many parts of Austria have suffered from the flood, that Vienna was completely safe. At the same time, this area, this island of 21 kilometers of length has created a new recreational space for the whole population. So this is not only including 40 kilometers of inner city beach, but also 2 million of trees and bushes, and there are instruments like or models like instead of mowing the lawns, we have a flock of sheep that is grazing there in summertime and so on. So that's the old thing. The new thing is that I believe for resilience we need new partnerships. And we have seen one thing during heat waves in summer in Vienna, that those who suffer most are the elderly people who are more and more isolated, living in their small homes that are getting hotter and hotter. And we are currently setting up a network of what we call cooling zones, which are rooms, facilities, venues that are open to the public for free. And people can just go there to regenerate, to cool off, to also get in contact with other people, get some advice there. And we're doing that not as an investment project of the city, but mostly as a partnership project with different institutions, from youth centers to pensioners clubs, involving as many institutions as possible, so that different groups of people also get access to different rooms of that growing network.
Thank you, Johannes. So we've learned now from the panel that the importance of planning ahead. All cities here are talking about long-term plans, but how do you translate it down from the strategic plans down to local actions? I think this is a key issue. And interestingly enough, there was a topic of social resilience, cultural resilience that's coming into play as well. Again, very important aspect to anchor our societies. I like the idea of thinking across, integrated, that Zoe brought up, and having parks that are multifunctional. They're resident infrastructure, yet they're places for the people. And I like the word that she put in, and Johannes as well, how to translate these places to fun places for the people. And I think we're doing things for the people. And I think I really admire Seoul's 100-year plan. They're going to totally reorganize the city into 50 micro-Seouls, 50 10-minute walking cities. Really ambitious plan, and we wish you all the best. But in so doing, I think the idea of reducing carbon emissions, again, a common topic, and how do we get people to walk, cycle, ride, and also have fun at the same time, but having convenience, and in that case also kind of a local resilient infrastructure as well. And congratulations, of course, Vienna, for your flood resilience infrastructure. Protected the whole of Vienna from the recent floods. Well done. And it's something that all of us can learn from as well. Now, with that in mind, you notice there was a lot of talk about people, community, human-centric, fun for the people. I'd like to just end off the session quickly with a question about people. We know that active engagement with local communities is key in building sustainable and effective resilience strategies. What are the examples of how you have involved people in the process? And I'm just going to reverse it now. So I'm going to get Johannes to start and come back this way.
Okay, I'll just give one example. It's called Vienna Climate Teams. The idea is that instead of only implementing top-down measures of climate mitigation and climate adaptation, people are invited to bring in their own ideas of how to do it and what to do in their neighborhood. We're doing that on district level. People can bring in ideas of different projects, be it redesign of public space, sharing economy issues, or whatever they have in mind. And the city has reserved a certain budget for implementing those projects. Now, out of those ideas, together with experts from public administration or from research and science, projects are developed. And then there is a city council, which is a citizens' council, that is deciding on district level which of these projects to be implemented with public money. And that is creating kind of a momentum where ownership changes. So the people on local level, the inhabitants, the neighbors are taking ownership of their ideas and their projects that they are elaborating further with the experts and then implementing.
Thank you, Johannes. Over to you, Simón.
For us in Medellin, we have a project that is called Parceros. This project is about people with many difficulties in their neighborhoods, and they become like leaders for their neighborhoods, and they work with all the other people from the neighborhood to create spaces where they can develop artists, they can develop some culture and so on, and also depends on the neighborhood. They have also plans from urban farming and so. And that's like the major project that we have nowadays in Medellin.
Right, and now Inhee, I'm going to ask you all to speed up a little bit.
In the last 15 years, we have a lot of experience, the citizen participation, and they participate in their own policies. They propose the vision and strategic and budget plan. But now, to make it effective, the participation process, or to realize the micro-cities, we need a more participation process, but not in Seoul Metropolitan Government. We have a Seoul Metropolitan Government, and under Seoul Metropolitan Government, we have 25 local government. And we try to make give a more role for local government so that they can make a participation process with a citizen. That is more effective to realize the micro-complex Seoul.
Right.
Yeah, that is the next test.
Thank you, Inhee. Over to you, Zoe.
Yeah, so I'm not going to answer with a specific project. We did some really good outreach on the City of Yes, that's the reason that's going to pass, and as well as the Port Authority bus terminal, which is a major redesign. I want to point to the fact that the way that we have seen this success happen across many projects is that it's iterative and it's real. Because too often we see governments, there's, in the United States, a lot of times there's the legal amount of meetings they need to have with the public, they check their box, done. And then they just kind of do what they were going to do, maybe with a few tweaks. Where we're seeing success and where we're seeing real meaningful change and projects advance is when it's repeated interactions, they come back to the table, and they actually take into account the concerns of the citizens. And these are helping otherwise very complicated or volatile projects actually get shovels in the ground. And if we don't kind of take that process and focus just on what we need to do, we're not going to get where we need to go. So.
Thank you, Zoe. And now over to you, Eider.
Well, in our case, the culture of associationism and participation is very rooted in the city, and so we have just passed our new participation strategy with different iterative tools, such as the participatory budget, the civic council, the Ausoki de Plana, which is a budget that is allocated to each district, and it's debated in the district which works will be done in order to improve the neighborhoods in that district for the coming years. But I would just just to quickly highlight how positively has participation impacted or influenced, for instance, our urban master plan. That is a plan that has been developed, approved in 2022 for the next 20 years, and that through participation has managed to include the gender perspective, so working on security items, time improvement issues, but also through participation we have managed to include some indicators that have shown us how far people do have equipment and green areas from their households. So we have been able to include all that in our urban master plan, that it has a very long-term perspective.
Right. In quick summary, I think the key takeaways here, the process must be iterative, it must be real. It's not only the strategic level, but really get down to the local level. And that's how Vienna is getting people involved in designing public spaces, how Medellin is getting people at the neighborhoods to design art spaces and creative spaces. And what you mentioned, it is very important. And how do we measure it? Indicators are extremely important to put in place so that we can measure the success of whatever we're doing. Now we have a little bit of time. I have a little bit of a surprise for the panel. I'm going to ask you a quick question, but a personal question. And we'll start with Eider first. A very short answer. What keeps you awake at night?
People suffering.
People
Definitely.
Suffering. Okay, over to Zoe.
I'm worried that people aren't taking climate change seriously and looking at it as a tomorrow problem, as Charles was talking about. We need to do it today.
Right.
I'm
Inhee.
sorry, I'm sorry, I can understand, but...
What keeps you awake at night? What disturbs you?
I think the gap between what the citizens think and what the professionals think, and politicians. And how can we harmonize these ideas? And I think that's why the citizen participation is very strategic means to make harmonize between, to minimize the gap.
Thank you. Simón.
People is hungry. At Medellin, people has hungry all the time.
Okay, thank you for that. And Johannes?
Again, coming back to Charles, what Charles said in the beginning, perhaps this gap between that we actually know what has to be done and we're not doing it, or it's always too little too late. And that's perhaps the biggest challenge.
Right, so there is a sense of urgency amongst all of us. We want to get people involved, and we want to make sure all the gaps are covered, and we bring the people upwards so that they can understand what all of us are doing as governments, as professionals in action. Now, the last question. This time I'll start with Johannes. What makes you happy?
Well, actually, I'm working for a consultancy agency of the city. What makes me happy is if advice is taken. So.
Thank you. Simón?
What makes me happy? I think working for the people, making projects for them.
Working for the people. Thank you. Inhee.
Make me happy to sit in front of people. It's such a great, honorable place that make me happy. And I will announce to Seoul from government, so yeah, that's make me very happy.
Very good. Zoe?
I think we're seeing a better examples of better narratives being created because we need to present a vision for the future, not just focus on the problems that we have. Sometimes our job is bringing facts to the feelings fight, and we need to create stories that inspire people so they can see themselves in it.
Eider?
Not in a very emotional way, but also in a rational way. People talking to each other and smiling to each other, because that means that we are collaborating and cooperating in a healthy manner. So when you see people having a healthy relationship, I think that's good for everyone and for our cities, of course. So I think that makes me happy.
Thank you very much, everyone. So we want to make sure advice is taken. We like to work for the people, and we're getting better at the narratives, and people smiling in the streets and smiling at what we do. Excellent. Thank you so much, panel members, and please put your hands together. Thank you.